maybe we should start already. For our listeners, we are trying to connect with paranormal research investigators from the UK, Andy and Nick. And they have
I
a
can't lip read. Sorry.
tremendous lot of efforts. and
we're trying to find some speakers.
They made a lot of a tremendous lot of efforts for making their backgrounds and a new logo.
We could still make it work because of headphones. Nick could do the first half and I could do the second half, or vice versa.
Yeah, that's okay. For our listeners, Andy is at this moment doesn't hear us.
One headphone here and the other headphone there, and then we just put our heads together.
So he can't hear us. So we will blank out a little bit and come back later when we have established our connection.
Okay. It's probably because, yeah.
You hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Finally.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
No. Things go wrong every now and then. So okay, I was speaking in or was talking to the listeners. That we're trying to set up a connection and that we were going to blend out, but Andy was going like I don't know what you're saying. So, okay, Nick, Andy, welcome to the podcasts of The Next Truth or Science and Myth Meet. You are the first ones I am recording for YouTube and your website and hopefully my website. I am tremendously nervous. This is really the first time. So I see you have an amazing background. Well, this is your new logo, I assume?
Well, yeah, it's newish, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, we did start off with something different, but I think it was always going to be a bit of a sort of a stopgap until we found something a bit more colourful. So I think you found the idea of this sort of I don't know.
How did you came up with that?
Well, basically, what I want to do is have something that was visually good to look at, but without the stereotypical cheesy ghost or black shadow, or I just wanted something that represented what probably looks like an atom.
Yes.
So it's
more
some
like
of the lines of like
string theory. It's more like string theory and a black hole in the middle, but that's probably my physics mind.
No, I think that about.
But it looks amazing. You told me in an email that you have prepared for us an amazing presentation. So I have not prepared myself any questions for me to ask you. So I will go along with you, and I would say, well, start off amaze me.
Okay.
Right.
Well, okay. Yeah. First off, I don't know whether it'll be amazing or not, but
not that amazing.
Yeah. But we understand that how you approach your listeners is from a scientific viewpoint, and it's about education. So what we thought we would do is show you a presentation that's split in two halves. One is of what the first half is of an investigation we did at English Heritage Site, and we got some interesting EVPs. So we thought we'd show you the pictures and the EVPs as the first half, and the second half will be a bit more educational and more scientific to show you how we as a group, our own group, conducts investigations.
Yeah.
Because we have a very different style to how some of us do it. But it'll become evident when we talk about it why we do it the way we do.
Yeah. I think the point is it's trying to be a rational approach. I think the trouble is there's a lot of people out there sensationalizing things, and what we're trying to do is basically say, no, it's not paranormal. There is probably a rational explanation. You strike everything out in a sort of, suppose, a sort of scientific way, and hopefully you end up with something which is unexplainable and about as far as it's ever going to get. Because I think if the paranormal could be explained, it would be explained already, and it's not.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm tremendously curious about especially about the EVPs. Don't give me any jump scares there now, eh?
Yeah. I'd be very surprised if you get scared.
Okay. Well, I'm scared easily, so okay.
I must give a warning though that one of the EVPs does sound like a swear word. Okay.
Oh, okay.
So just so you're aware.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nothing personal.
I'll put over a big bleep there. Yeah. No. Then you don't need the EVP anymore. Yeah. Okay, fine. Wait. But, tell me first. Paranormal Research Investigation UK.
Yeah.
How did it start? How did your?
Well, I think really it was that Andy and me probably met at the Ghost Club. For all those people out there that perhaps don't know, the Ghost Club is one of the oldest ghost clubs in the world, and it goes back to 1862, and it's got a long history. I mean, it has at times not existed, but it's been resurrected. But some of the famous people, I think Conan Doyle, the author Conan Doyle, was involved at some stage. He was very much interested in the paranormal, and it's been very much a hub of, I think, thinking in terms of ghosts. Not necessarily the paranormal, but it is obviously the Ghost Club. So it's fairly narrow in its approach. I think as it sort of stands at the moment, it's a mixture of investigation, socializing really as much as anything, and that's how Andy himself met.
Yeah,
but that's quite a few years ago now.
Yeah, that was probably in about 2016, was it?
Probably
17. Yeah, I don't know. But we met through that really, and I think what happened was Nick had an interest in EVP that he played, and I was sitting behind him, so I listened to it, and it was a woman cackling laughter, and I just took the mickey out of Nick. And then we kind of just basically formed the group from then on, basically.
Yes. I think the thing is, it's also founded on friendship. I mean, to be quite honest, I think you come across a lot of people, and for some reason we do seem to gel. I don't know how you call it, but we do feed off each other in terms of our thinking, and not that we think the same. But I think we're quite open and free to discuss things, and I'm sure Andy doesn't agree with some of the things that I say, and equally myself.
But that's good. It's good because we both have a rational approach, but we probably are different. The spectrum we're probably different with regards to what I've personally experienced, and I think I forgot what I was going to say. Really, there's in the paranormal community, there's a lot of egos. There's a lot of people with a lot of high egos, and you kind of have to find people that you can get along with and cut through all the nonsense and all the
connect with in a sense.
Yeah, you have to be prepared.
You are not the only two from paranormal research investigating.
No, we have three or four other people. Ellie May, she's the youngest, and she helps out with the kind of the technical stuff, which if she'd been here today, we would have been on time.
We would have worked.
We've got Ruth. She's good. She's a mental health social worker, but she's very good with. I guess she brings something different that we do, because we don't usually consider feelings as a way of measuring an environment, but she's what's called a sensitive. But we have Nick, who does a lot of the organising. Nick's very good at finding venues.
Yeah, that's with the Ghost Club.
Yeah. So basically, yeah, we have a small team, but our ethos for the group, for the group that we formed, is that we have a rational approach. We follow the scientific method, and we acknowledge that whatever information we do find, there's always a level of doubt, and there's always a level of an alternative explanation.
Yeah. So we're not claiming to be mediums or, you know, being able to talk to spirits or anything like that. It is basically investigation. We research it. We read as much as we can. We perhaps
you are gathering data in order to find an answer if there what there is, and if there is something in realms we do not see, that is not being captured by the naked eye, but sometimes in the corner of your eyes, those shadowy figures or the creepy feelings, the goosebumps, you're trying to find, gather the data in order to prove its existence or non-existence.
Yeah, and what will be interesting is as we go through the presentation, we touch upon all the different types of ideas that people commonly have with investigations, and we have our own perspective on it. So we touch on the idea of corner of the eye, you know, what it means, how it could be misperception. We touch upon a lot.
Your investigations, is that purely based on for your group, or do you have also clients, people who are calling you?
We have both. I mean, we do go out and investigate areas. I mean, we're going to be talking about Tilbury Fort. Andy mentioned it earlier, which is an English heritage site. But we do get contact from people. We do get advice. We actually conducted an overnight investigation just before the coronavirus thing took hold. So we were outside lockdown. So we actually spent some time at some. They were so scared they actually left the flat. And we were able to sort of stay there, just Andy and myself, overnight, and set up our data logging equipment. And that's the important thing to bear in mind, is that we're not saying that we've got ghost detecting equipment. We've got data logging, so we can try and sort of identify things which might actually cause sort of disturbances. And I think actually, in all fairness, I think on that particular investigation, we found certainly one particular cause of why certainly the wife was feeling very uncomfortable, and that turned out to be probably an electromagnetic field where the main power came into the building. That's right.
She was sensitive for that,
and a lot of people are, and we were able to identify that particular spot in the room had an EMF reading, but not because it was haunted, but because purely that's where the power came into a block of flats.
Yeah. And we don't doubt them. We don't doubt them because they were a genuine couple, a very genuine couple.
Yes.
But nothing particularly happened on the night that we were there. And this is the problem. Spontaneous incidences are by their very nature random. You know, there's no prediction of when something's going to happen and how it's going to happen. You know, you just got to be lucky to be at the same place at the same time when something does happen. I mean, I listened to hours and hours, 10 hours of recording, and it was just nothing, you know. And this is the downside of the research that we do. It's very tedious and it's very monotonous. It's very listening to a lot of recordings, listening to watching videos, CCTV, watching different types of cameras. It's not as exciting as the
a lot as the TV is or movies are showing. It's a lot of waiting and a lot of static noise with no creepy bumps in there or voices. Yeah, I can imagine. Is that one of the investigations that you wanted to present?
Tonight we're going to do Tilbury Fort, and the reason why we're doing Tilbury Fort is because it gives you an idea of the two types of investigation that we've done, and it's the same place, but it's two different types of methods, and we just want to have your listeners, probably to make it interesting for them. The first half is going to be some interesting sounds that we picked up, and then the second half is going to be more about the education. It's going to be about the methodology we use, the reason why we use it, the ethics we use. You know, it's important that for your listeners who've got an interest in science, is that even though me and Nick are not scientists, that we do try and follow the method, you know, and I believe the term is citizen scientists. We really don't have any credibility or reputation to lose, you know what I mean? So like, so it's okay for us to go out and investigate a paranormal without risking losing our scientific career. Yeah.
Well, I'm retired now anyway, so I've got no career to lose.
Okay, Tilbury 4. What I'm going to do, Maria, is that sometimes we'll disappear so you can see the full picture, and then we'll come back again.
Just to give a bit of background, as you can see, it's a very sort of strange shape, but if you can see the main water which passes through the picture, that's actually the River Thames. And what actually happened at the time of Henry VIII, so we're talking about the 1500s, the powers that be decided that the Thames needed some fortification because it meant that London was under threat. So they needed to set up a whole series of forts along the River Thames. And this is just one of them that's open to the public now, but it does go back to Henry VIII. And you can see there's a moat around it. It's quite a large area. But
it's like a star shape.
It's a star shape. So obviously, you know, they'd obviously thought of the way to defend it. So it's evolved over the years. I mean, I think the original fortifications were wooden, but a lot of it is now brick and goes back to probably the 1800s. Some of it is 1700s, and we'll talk about that perhaps a little bit more later on. But as you say, it's quite an impressive building. Unfortunately, it's very much in part of a sort of an industrial area of the Thames. So you can't see the port of Tilbury, which is just a little bit further up the river. There's also a sewage plant, electric generation, and obviously holding for, I think it's Ford have got there a holding area. But it looks quite picturesque. But unfortunately,
we've been there about 5 times, and for anyone who's in the UK who's listening, it's worth a visit. It's going to be open in August again. So if you live in London or live near London, it's worth a visit. We find it fascinating. It's got such a history, and you know, it's a good visit, and we would really recommend anyone who can to do a visit, and that'll be open in August. So basically, we did an investigation with the Ghost Club initially a couple of years ago, and the Ghost Club is, like Nick said, is the oldest society for ghosts, founded in 1862, wasn't it? I think. So basically, you can join the club. You don't have to live in the UK. You can join the club. Anyone in the world can join the club. It's roughly about £30 a year, and you get journals. Alan Murdy's the chairman. He's an encyclopedia of knowledge.
Absolutely, fantastic man.
So we did an investigation with the Ghost Club, and what we found, I'll just give you a bit more idea, is
oh wow.
So I don't know if you can see, but the four.
Yeah, I can see it.
the bottom left, you can see a couple of mounds, like 1, 2, 3, 4 mounds.
Yes, I can see that.
The bottom corner. They're actually tunnels. It's
the way it's been built is actually that they're brick tunnels, and they've just piled the earth back on top of them. But that's where the guns were actually mounted, or some of the guns were actually mounted. So if you see the main picture, like the white roof, they're the magazines. That's where the powder.
That is the main building. The white roof is the main building, and behind that, for our listeners, there is a big, courtyard, looks like it, and a lot of green. There's a lot of grass. There are a couple of barracks, I believe, a couple of side buildings. It's an amazing site. It's enormous.
Well, it was actually active right up until the First World War. And it was used during the Second World War, but only they didn't have gun emplacements there. They just had air raid patrols. You know, they were watching the planes coming down the River Thames, because obviously the Luftwaffe would follow the River Thames down towards the city of London. But the actual tunnels themselves, I say, they were brick built and piled of earth, and then there's like a tube which actually connects the the under part, the passage part, and the magazine rooms, so they could pass shells up into the top part where they could actually be fired. But of course, the guns have been removed.
Queen Elizabeth did a was it Queen Elizabeth?
Yeah.
Queen Elizabeth did a famous speech to rally. What was happening at the time?
Well, if people know about Queen Elizabeth, her famous speech was about she may have had the frail body of a woman, but she had the heart of a lion. So of course she certainly visited Tilbury Fort, but supposedly delivered that speech at the time, you know, when obviously there was a big threat from Spain. So it's got a fantastic history.
Yeah, that's just a diagram of the layout. It's probably a bit too hard to see, but
it's a little bit small, but yeah, you can see it. You can see it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, people can look it up on the internet.
Yeah. So this is like, again, a closer up of the top half of the. So there's a 50-meter tunnel that connects these 4 chambers.
Okay.
It's about 50 meters in length that connects these 4 chambers at the top.
You've been in there.
Yeah. So this is the part we picked up some very interesting stuff.
Okay.
So I'm just going to show you the entrance now. This is the entrance, how to get inside this tunnel.
So you can see it's at ground level, but being built up and mounds of earth piled over it.
I can see it, yes.
And this is the 50-meter tunnel that connects the 4 chambers. So it's quite long, it's very narrow, and it's very dark.
Painted white, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
When we were there, obviously it was nighttime and it was pitch black, and it's quite scary to be inside the tunnel.
I can imagine that, yes.
Yeah, so this is just a diagram of, again, showing the 4 chambers and the long tunnel that connects the 4 chambers. The reason why I've got this diagram up is because in 2 of the chambers, we've got some anomalous activity. The first chamber that we got anomalous activity was probably the 2nd chamber that you can see on the diagram, going from south to north. And this was when Nick and 2 other people were inside this room. So what we're going to do, we're going to play you an extract of what we think is quite a good EVP, and yes. We won't say what it is, but have a listen, and then we'll tell you what we think it says.
What actually happened is that Andy, there were 4 of us in this little group. Andy had gone off to set some other equipment up, and I was with two of my friends who I've known 15, 16 years, so totally reliable people. They're not going to be mucking about. And so what was actually happening, we went to the first magazine passage, and I was setting up a recorder. They weren't sure about what to do in terms of an investigation, so the plan was that we would be extremely quiet, we wouldn't say anything, we'd just sit there, sort of tune into the environment. And this is basically me setting up the recorder, so I'm just going to play that now.
Magazine passage at 2027. Just putting the device down now.
That's me talking. Whispering.
I can hear that, yeah.
And then there seemed to be some audible words. Now, we didn't hear that at the time.
No.
So it was very odd to listen back to the recording and to suddenly hear what seemed to be whispering. Now, what we do is if we pick something up, I mean, this is again part of the experience as far as we're concerned, is that if we pick something up, Andy and me won't say what it is. I'll say, look, I've got a recording, I think there's something here. You listen to it. And then once Andy's made a decision, I've obviously heard it, so I've got my own thoughts on the subject. Then we exchange ideas and see whether it matches up, and it did. So what we're going to do is I'm just going to play you a recording now of something which is the part that we think is quite sort of the interesting part. And I don't know if you could pick that up. Could you hear that whispering? I don't know whether the audio.
I thought the connection was bad again.
See if I can play that again.
Yes, please.
difficult to get that over. Hat.
Yeah, that's very difficult to hear.
Yeah.
It's very soft.
What I'll explain then is that what we picked up there, that's obviously just an extract from that recording. So we heard the whispering in the recording, and then there's this reference which sounds like, well, Scotsman. Now, that might sound a bit peculiar because obviously Tilbury Fort is in England, obviously, London, just outside London. But what's interesting is that Jacobean prisoners, that's the Jacobean revolt that took place in the 1700s in Scotland. There were prisoners taken who were actually taken to Tilbury Fort and left in very dire surroundings. I mean, they were badly treated. So it seems a bit of a vague thing to just hear, well, Scotsman, but there is a sort of historical connection. Now, we're not saying that this is proof that EVP is existing. All we're doing is presenting it and saying, look, listen to it. We can't explain it. We don't know why it would be there. There doesn't seem to be any sort of scientific explanation as to why there should be that background noise, because there wasn't any background noise. Once I placed the recorder down, it was just running by itself. And nobody in that room. There were just three of us. We weren't talking. So it's just very curious. You know, again, it's not proof. I mean, some people will say that it is, but we certainly wouldn't, because there is no explanation. We can't explain it, but it is just a curiosity. And I think that the odd thing about it was that when we arrived at Tilbury Fort, I mean, I've said we're not mediums, you know, we're not sensitive in that sense, but there did seem to be a bit of an atmosphere about the place. We've been back since, and it's not been like that at all. So it was very odd that, you know, we seemed to pick up an awful lot on that particular night.
I mean, I could feel, you know, when there's a thunderstorm coming and you can feel the ionized air, you know, in the atmosphere. It had that type of atmosphere that night, and it was strange. It was heavy black clouds, and it was just a very atmospheric. I don't know if it's linked to it or not.
The air, the density is changing, and you are getting electrified, and suddenly it feels, when you are talking into paranormal terms, as if a gate is opening from one world to the other, from one realm to the other, and that it is a little bit more clear to hear or see or what is happening in another dimension.
Yeah, it was noticeable, and I think there must be some kind of connection to it, but we don't know what it is. But we've got another extract now, and this is what we think is an intelligent response to what's being asked.
Yeah. So I'm just going to play this. So hopefully you can hear it. Again, we can send something on to you.
Okay.
So I'm not sure whether you'd be able to hear that, to be quite honest. It is very quiet.
Yeah.
But again, we didn't pick anything up at the time. And again, at that particular point, there were only three of us in that particular room, you know, this sort of magazine. But what I'll try and do is I'll play something which is a bit louder. Again, I'm not sure whether you'll be able to pick that up. But what it does sound like, again, we went through the process of distributing it between the people that were actually present in the room. There were three of us. And I think everybody concurred. And again, you'll have to excuse my language, but it does sound like somebody just saying back, fuck you.
Okay, dus bleep you. Yeah, okay, fine.
That's the one. Yeah. I mean, it's just odd. But what I would say, what seems to be curious, having sort of listened to the hours of recordings that we did on the night, is that when you hear these things, they seem to stand out. What do you think?
What do you think that an EVP is? Do you think it's a voice, and disembodied voice from another realm, or that it's maybe a background noise from a passing car, or a passing by airplane, or maybe your own echo? Your jacket is rubbing against something, or what do you think that an EVP is?
It can be all of those things. Basically, how we do it, we're members of an organisation called ASAP, and I'll come on to them about how they formed and how you can join them. But they are very good at looking at the scientific and rationale about sound waves, how recorders pick up noise, how our brain interprets noise. And the problem with EVPs is that they tend to be one word or two words or very small phrases, and the way our brain interprets their environment is that it's something called formant noise. So our brains fill in gaps every time they hear a noise, and sometimes it can trick us into thinking we can hear a word when it's not there. And so that's why EVPs tend to be classed as like Class A, Class B, Class C, depending on the quality of them. And they have to be very clear. What was interesting about the one that Nick just played, and the problem is, because it's coming through an external speaker onto your speaker through my connection to your connection, it's probably too low for you to hear it. But when you listen to the file, we'll send you the file. When your listeners can hear it on your website, it seems to be an intelligent response to what Nick was asking.
Yeah.
And again,
well,
you know,
if the response is bleep you, then I think the question wasn't that very nice, right? Or
well, it's one that I've had worse.
Do we want to know what the question was?
But I think that the other thing is that what we try and do when we do investigations is that we try and tag every noise that we can actually hear. So if we do an investigation and somebody sneezes or makes an utterance in some way, we will actually say, oh, that was so and so, you know, but this was quiet. I mean, nobody heard it at the time. So I think those sort of things, those unwitting utterances, as they're sort of generally referred to, is possibly one of the things, like you said yourself, is one of the causes of why people are picking up EVPs. And of course, the thing, again, like Andy said, was that people are trying to interpret. You know, we do these things because we want to perhaps believe that there is some sort of communication. So it's the brain manipulating every sound and actually saying, well, okay, that sounds like somebody talking, whispering, making a noise, and these are words. And like I said about the Welsh Scotsman recording, oh, well, of course, it has some relevance. So therefore, you know, it has some credibility. And I think it's very difficult how some of these noises will get into record that we've heard. We don't know, because some of the voices have been extremely clear. We've had one particular case which was, and again, seemed to be an intelligent response. It was being analysed by a leading investigator. I won't name him because it was a private email that we had between ourselves. He couldn't really explain it. A friend of mine who he's now retired, worked in forensics and police, certainly felt that there were three voices involved: Andy, myself, and the other person whose utterance we picked up. The explanation is that it could be, say, a radio frequency breakout. In other words, we're picking up radio frequencies. But it just seems odd that it seemed to be an intelligent response and very appropriate, obviously, because it's an intelligent response. And we didn't pick up anything else. You know, why wasn't it music? I mean, more music is played on the radio than I should think anything else. And it was at that just one particular point. So it's very tantalizing. And sort of, although you can't say it's proof and you can't explain it, I think it's certainly something that is worthy of investigation, something that we're very conscious of. And somebody perhaps with a more technical understanding of these things will be able to perhaps one day explain it. It is not just white noise, put it like that. It's not just something that we're picking up. We see a lot of people talking about EVPs. Did you hear that? Out of white noise, but it certainly wasn't. It wasn't that sort of noise that we were picking stuff out of.
No.
Andy, you changed the background, I see.
Yeah, I just wanted to show you what the chambers looks like. This is the size of the chambers. Okay. So basically, when
it's very small. How many people could stand in there? Do you think? Approximately.
If you want to be a tin of sardines, I should think you could easily get 20 people in there. But,
20? That's not big. Not a big room.
Probably, if you think of the depth of it and the width of it. But the areas you've got is because obviously you've got combustible material in there. You know, obviously shells. The fuses, because that's the other thing they kept in these rooms, fuses. But if you go back, sorry Andy, I was going to say, if you go back that picture, if you take the room, you can see the light. Now, obviously, that's an electric light, but in the old days, that would have been a gas light, but of course protected to make sure there wasn't any sparks or anything like that. The hole that we're looking at, which is in the top right-hand corner, that would have been the chute. So all of the sort of the shells, the fuses would have been passed up through into the gun chamber above. So obviously that is the protection.
So that's the back of the chamber. The next picture is showing you the front. So these are the doors that how you get into the chamber.
Yes, I can see the door in the picture. Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. So it's two wooden doors that close. They're very flimsy, the doors actually. And then you got wooden shelves above, and you got like a sturdy wooden shelf as well. So basically, what happened was that I arrived into the tunnel, and then me, Nick, and the two other people came further down into the end tunnel, end chamber, and then we got something interesting again happened. And this one was audible to us at the time as well.
Yeah.
And what we're going to do is we'll play it.
Yeah. I think the important thing to bear in mind is that the picture that was shown earlier is Andy just showing complete brickwork. The solid floor. It wasn't like it was a wooden floor or anything like that. That was a concrete floor, brickwork up like an arch. So the only wood that is there is the door frame and that bit of shelving which is surrounding the top half of the door. Because if we just play this next extract, this is something as I say we heard at the time. So let me just play it.
Okay.
Maybe you found it interesting too. I don't know what you did in here, or whatever it is. Perhaps you can tell us. You can speak.
What
So just repeating that sound.
was that? A little whisper? That shh. That is that what you mean?
So we're now talking about it, but if I just go back quickly to what we were listening to, there's a definite rap, and I think again generally these sort of things are referred to as poltergeist raps or anomalous raps, but they seem to be very common in areas which claim to be haunted.
Okay, now I'm probably a dumb European, but when I hear the word rap, I think about singers who are rapping like that. So what do you mean with a poltergeist rap?
Yeah. So a poltergeist knock, like a hard knock on the wood. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So I think the point is if you took your hand into a fist and you across a piece of wood and you banged your fist down, the noise that it's made you'd describe, I guess in English, as a rap.
Oh, okay.
It's a hard, sharp noise.
I thought it was a singing poltergeist or something. Yeah. I don't know.
Singing notes. Yeah. Spooky.
So basically, again, if you listen to it on the audio file, it's a lot louder. It's probably hard to hear it through the two different Skype connections. But again, it's very interesting because there's only 4 of us in the room. We're all facing each other. We're in the middle of the room. We didn't see anyone move. Everyone's standing still, and we had this massive, loud rap noise. And so basically, we know ourselves that nobody else was in that tunnel, and it wasn't one of us that made that noise. But we appreciate that listeners will, we can never prove that there wasn't anybody else in the tunnel, but we know that we were in the tunnel and nobody else were.
Yeah.
And I think the other important thing to bear in mind is that we've actually had this analysed. There is a sort of an idea, or there has been an idea, that these sort of noises, which seem to be, as I say, associated with haunted areas, they seem to have their own sort of waveform. So if you analyse the waveform, what actually is happening is that instead of a sort of build-up, sorry, beg your pardon, there is a build-up, rather than just a sudden peak, which then sort of falls away.
As if it has to come from a distance and then hits our frequencies and then is going like an upcoming car, the noise, and then you hear it fade away a little bit when it's...
So basically, there's a guy called Dr. Colvin, who's a member of the Society for Psychical Research. He analysed poltergeist knocks, and what he found, I'm just trying to move my head out of the way, but if you see that waveform behind me...
Yes, I can see it above you, yes.
So basically, it's measuring amplitude and frequency. Now, the amplitude is the largest points that you can see from the top to the bottom. Yes. And you'll see that there's a build-up before it gets to the largest amplitude. And then it slowly gets narrow again. Yeah. So basically, Dr. Colvin basically, in his analysis, said that poltergeist knocks have this common pattern of a slow build-up and a slow decrease afterwards.
Why is there a build-up? When I knock on a door, it is boom. It's there. It's gone.
That's what seems to distinguish. That's the distinguishing feature.
So when something has to be or looks like being built up before it will be audible for us or our devices to pick up, that could mean, I'm very cautious here, but it could mean that it's not a knock, but that it's a sentence or a word that is going that extremely fast that we hear it as a knock. So probably, maybe there's an option for people to research these reps, if I may say so, to slow them extremely down and stretch them so there's a sentence or a word in there.
And this is where you have to be careful, because the more you manipulate the noise, the more your brain then starts to hear things that aren't there. So you have to be very careful about the way the brain interprets sounds. And so basically this analysis here was done by James Tachi, who's the scientific technical officer of the Ghost Club. And what we did, like any scientist would do, is that you look for a comparison. So when you hear a noise, you try to figure out what the noise was and then get a comparison recording of it. So we then did some experiments and knocked on the wooden doors, the shelves, the latch, anywhere that we think the noise could have come from, and we obtained that the nearest one we could find was from the wooden shelf near the door entry. So you can see again the pattern here above my head of a slow build up and then it deteriorates. Now the problem with that is that the chamber and the tunnel causes an echo effect. So our comparison knock is also distorted, so we can't really say for certain that the anonymous knock is what it is, anomalous to the
Wait a minute, if I may interrupt you. Oh God, I'm going to cut this out. Oh God, my elbows. Okay, so I'm going to cut this out for real. Okay, I'm looking at the picture behind you. And I'm seeing that in the same area there is a fading out or a building up. Could that be related to air pressure or the movement of air at that moment when somebody is on the way to hit that wooden panel? For instance, to make that knock, you are pushing air different sides or making a pressure in air. So there is meaning that if a poltergeist or a spirit is making a knock as such and has the same pattern, means that it has density. Correct?
So, I mean, the explanation, I mean, we don't know. So it's hypothesis. And I think one of the other considerations is, of course, a lot of the digital recording devices have sort of self-leveling when it comes to recording. Now we've tried to emulate this, and it is difficult, but I still suspect that possibly what's causing, and we were only talking about the actual wave itself, not the actual sound and why that was actually created and what caused it, but actually in analysing the waveform is actually to look at it and think, well, if there's a self-leveling device, then obviously it's going to respond, but it's going to respond just very slightly or almost slowly to any sort of sound that it's recording. And that could possibly lead to these sort of distortions of the wave. So I think we can sort of dwell on the pattern of the wave, but what is curious to us, and this is the explanation that we haven't got, is what made the noise in the first place. Because it wasn't us, and as far as we could tell at the time when we tried to emulate the sound, we couldn't.
No.
So and as Andy said, it did seem to be an intelligent response to the question, but again, balance of probability. If you hear something, people make that association, that link. Again, if you go onto these television programs, they're all the time they're asking questions, hundreds and hundreds of questions, and then occasionally there is a noise, and it becomes fantastic news because the thing is, they're saying we're getting an intelligent response. So it is very open, but all we're doing is presenting it and saying, look, this is something we do hours and hours of investigation. It doesn't happen every time, but it was anomalous. We can't necessarily explain it, but it does seem very strange at that particular point of time.
Why do you think that is a rare phenomena, or asking 500 questions and get 2 responses? Why do you think that is? Because when I'm walking into a supermarket and I scream, "Hey," I will get a response.
Yeah.
Multiple.
Yeah. I mean, again, it's a great question, but I think that it's very difficult to actually distinguish the natural sounds that go on around us, or the things that we of course, the converse is the things that we think are perhaps paranormal. So the term that's actually been coined recently is xenonormal. So in other words, it's something quite natural and normal, but because it seems outside of because it seems outside to the person that's receiving or perceiving it, they say, oh, it's very unusual, it must be paranormal.
Yes.
So, you know, it's very difficult to actually make that distinction. We're probably looking at ourselves and think these people are absolute idiots. But believe us, you know, if you're standing in a passageway in the pitch black and you know there's nobody within hundreds of meters of you, and suddenly you're getting this sound, which, all right, difficult to perhaps convey over the sky, but it is extremely loud and very obvious.
If I may interrupt, I have been in Poland, that was Die Glocke or Hitler's Bell, and I went down as far as I could go into the tunnels. When I was walking up to, going deeper in there, I suddenly heard my own footsteps echoing as if somebody is coming in the front instead of in the back. Echoes, we usually think of them are traveling behind us, but this one was coming towards me, as if somebody was walking up towards me. That could be a possible explanation for hearing sounds when you are walking up to an end in a tunnel, or when the tunnel is getting narrower a little bit, so that you hear that strange effect you are not used to. And the other thing is, when you are deeper into the ground, stones, for instance, metals, they all have crystals, and they record. And when you have a flashlight and you give that an extreme bang of light, all those crystals are going to vibrate, starting to be elastic, and everything that they have recorded before is starting to get released by means of the stretching and pulling from the crystals. And that can also be an effect in, capturing EVPs, but that's the scientific side. Of course, but
I think that the reason why we're so excited about this one is because it was a brick, soil, and concrete floor, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So
even bricks have contain crystals.
Yeah. But the thing is, we were not moving. Not everyone was standing still, and it was very loud at the time, and we couldn't reproduce it as much as we tried. We couldn't get the same sound.
It could be that, like you say, it could just be the structure. You know, everything is going to settle. It's going to be thermal changes. There's going to be thermal differential, and it could perhaps just be that something triggered that noise, and it could be that it was the wooden shelves. But it seemed very loud, and you know, if you listen to wood, it does knock, and it does obviously straighten out or stretch, or what have you.
Materials move, yes.
Yeah.
They lift, finger quote, yeah.
Yeah, we call it the new house effect. It's a phrase that basically, when people spend the night somewhere they're not used to, they start to hear all sorts of unusual sounds. And it's, if you've moved to a new house, you're going to hear new sounds that you've never heard before. It's a bit like when you live next to a busy road, your brain starts blocking out the traffic. But if you move somewhere else, all of a sudden you just hear all these sounds again. And so we also took a FLIR camera into the chamber.
Those are cool devices. Yes, I want to have one of those.
So this is one of our investigators. We're in one of the chambers, and then the next screenshot, you see something like this in the background.
Oh, I can see that. There's another heat source behind or next, well, near, next, or behind the researcher.
Yeah. So basically, it looks like, you know, there's a body with a face.
Okay.
But the reason why I show this is because when people often send so-called pictures or evidence of sounds into us, they always give us one frame or a 1 5-second extract of a noise, which isn't useful. It's not helpful, because you need to know what the full picture is, the full context is. So you need to know, you have to have
what happened before, what happened after, and the situation. Yeah, okay.
So basically,
more explaining, people.
So we know that this apparent shadow figure with a round hooded face, we know for a fact that because we had more pictures, we know that it was actually the door. It's a light coming from a tunnel further down the back. And the reason why it looks a bit different colour is because the heat signature is obviously less when you go out the door. So we know for a fact that that can be explained away from a trick, you know.
So that one is debunked.
Yeah. When you do certain investigations, some people get carried away and they want the thrill, they want the excitement, and anything they hear or anything they see, they think, oh yeah, it's got to be paranormal, it's got to be paranormal. And you know, people need to understand that we see and hear with our brain.
It's mine.
Yeah. So this is a picture of Nick's brain. Yeah. That's it.
Brain.
Back in there, Nick.
Planet, but
you're catching a cold there. Your brain is outside your skull. Don't do that. Oh God, there's jump scare 1.
So basically, you know, our brain operates electrical signals, and our perception of reality is quite limited. You know, we don't see or hear much about what's outside our own body. You know, a lot of our brain does all the work for us. You know, our brain is designed and hardwired to take shortcuts, to look for patterns, to eliminate all the noise coming in and only show us to our conscious what's relevant. And we need to understand that when we do investigations, because we're very limited by how our brain works. And when people misperceive things, it's very easy to get excited and say it's paranormal, but a lot of it's really about how our brains are hardwired, because we want to take a more scientific approach to the whole investigation technique.
Yes.
And what we did, we actually joined an organization called ASAP. So basically in the 1980s, this group formed away from the Society of Psychical Researchers, because the Society of Psychical Research, we call it SPR, by the way, because it's easy to say. SPR is a well-established and very credible academic research in the UK. Anyone can join. We'll give you the details about the website at the end. But ASAP is just as good. And ASAP is all about going out into the field, going out into the homes, going out into the locations where spontaneous phenomena is happening.
Yeah. I think this is just to explain that ASAP actually stands for, and it's a registered charity as well. So it's you know, and it's probably highly regarded, certainly in the UK. So that's the Association, the Association for the Scientific Study of Anomalous Phenomena.
Wait a minute, is Nick Pope also connected with this
I'm not sure that
society?
he's actually connected to ASAP. He could very well be a member. I mean, we don't have a list of all the members.
Because I read somewhere, I believe, I'm not quite sure, but I believe that I read that he is also a member from this organization.
Yeah, it's quite possible, because the thing is, because it's I mean, we've mentioned the Ghost Club, and it has very sort of specifically steers towards ghost investigation,
Yes.
and obviously research and obviously recounting tales and getting information. ASAP is all sorts of anomalous phenomena, so it would include UFOs.
Yeah, includes UFOs, cryptids.
So yeah, I believe that he is also a member. Where can we find it? What is the website?
Yeah,
of
so it's
this?
basically asap.au.uk.
Okay, and everybody can become a member from that. I mean, of course, probably you need to pay your contribution.
It's really, really cheap. It's £5 a year.
£5 a year. Well, even I
can
pay that.
for electronic copies of the journals. And also the website is brilliant as well, because it's got a lot of information on there about how, you know, about the alternative explanations for paranormal. It's really good, and I recommend anyone interested in the paranormal to join ASAP and also look at the website, because the information on there, it's very detailed. It's a lot of these people are experts in sound waves, in how the brain works, and it gives very good, clear advice about what could be going on.
Nick, Andy, it is unbelievable, but the hour is already past. And this is so much information, so intriguing topic. I want to invite you for a next podcast and explain more about how our brain can manipulate our own vision, and maybe even the environment. And more about your investigations, because you have done so many investigations and EVPs. And but before we close out, where can we find Paranormal Research Investigations UK? Can people contact you via website or via email or probably Facebook?
Yeah, they can contact us through both. We have our own Facebook page. We've got an email and a contact form on the website as well. So, yeah, if they could do that, that'd be fantastic.
Thank you all for tuning in this week on The Next Truth, where science and myth meet. Make sure to visit our website, www.nexttruth.com. That is nexttruth, all in one word.com. And let us know what you think about our podcast. While you're at it, if you found value in this show, we would appreciate a rating on our website in the section The Next Truth Podcasts. Or if you would simply tell a friend about the show, that would help us too. I am Maria Anna van Driel with The Next Truth. Be sure to tune in next week for our next episode.